Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a dragon deck. This is your normal standard ramp dragon, but with a bunch of the new cards added to it to fill it out and make it a lot better than, well, not better, but just different, I guess would be the better word for it. So the first of the new cards is White Worm. We're actually running this because it gives you Dragonest, which is a great card in this format so far, and has been performing great when you actually are comboing it with Lindworm, which we are only running a single one of. I would recommend running probably two or running one in Ouroboros. Unfortunately, I only have Aistraha to fill that kind of spot, and at the moment that's all I could really do for that one, although I haven't really needed to use either of these in the matches that I've played, just because I really am closing out games earlier than that, or am just purely focusing more on board control against some of the more swarmy type classes. Other than that, we're also running, of course, one Moon and Sun because of the cyclability and combo with the Lindworm. We've also got Dragoncleaver Roy, again, has some great effects and can be used pretty versatile. Then we also have probably one of my favourite cards, Two Breaths. It looks absolutely astounding, and the cards that you can pull from it, which are here, are quite good. I mean, Destroy an Enemy Flora Amulet is amazing, and draw two cards for two is fairly good as well. Other than that, we're just running the rest as a pretty standard deck. Currently, Canyon of Dragons is a huge card in this meta and makes a massive impact to the board. So our first game is Dragon versus Dragon, so this match is a pretty reasonable one. The opponent's running a PDK variant of a similar deck. Of course, I do want to test that one out soon as well, because I really want to mess with the Water Orcas and PDK. I think that could be a lot of fun, but for the most part, this deck is a pretty good counter to the PDK, just because you are running so many board clears, and once you clear a couple of PDKs, usually it's hard for Dragon to really stabilize again outside of that, without just absolutely trying to roll you with something else, which is fairly uncommon. So they do have the early staircase play, looking for whatever they can obviously get out of it. And I can just start by going for a low cost ramp, which with our current setup isn't too bad at all. They do go for their Dragoncleaver Roy. I'm pretty sure he's going to be a staple in Dragon for a while. And of course, we are going to take ours and most likely focus on some more ramp this time around instead of going for the attack card. I feel like ramp is important, especially with what we currently have. So why not take the ramp where we can get it? And of course, that should work fairly well in our favor. Like, I mean, why wouldn't it? Be gone. So we do get to trade this, which is fairly good. I mean, we're already ramped up enough that we should be able to take the lead fairly easily with these civils. And we have our board clear, which will be nice later on. So there's no real problem with trying to take the lead here. Really trying to present ourselves as the stronger of the two dragon decks.
I won't let you harm Mr. Dragon.
We've also secured an Israfil, which is good, so we can use that as a pretty much immediate follow-up to a decent turn 8 board flood.
My dance quenches the earth.
Since we don't need to do any clearing at the moment, Sibyl's a fairly solid one. It will boost our health back up. We can play this Dragonest alongside it, and we got to ramp to 8, which is a good spot to be in considering how close to 10 we're going to be next turn.
Bluest water.
But they do go for the Maelstrom Dragon. It's not that surprising. They really want to deal with this and get their damage in now. Probably looking to swarm as quickly as they can. We do get the heal, so we do go back up to 20. So basically making their damage kind of irrelevant at this point. And this time we can actually go for the attack card because we don't need to ramp anymore. So being able to just kill something off here is pretty beneficial for us. And we can even try and set up another decent drop. So we see the first of the PDKs and the second, so it looks really good, especially when they have no evolves to really survive this. We know that the next few cards are going to be reasonably low drops. They are going to get a little bit of damage in, but I mean, we can do a fairly good job at just wiping this out next turn, while also hopefully setting up a card. So an immediate death and a Dragonest. The Dragonest should be good. They do go for their own Dragon's Nest though, and the Dragoon Scyther. Not really any kind of threat here. Looks like they are going fairly wide though. playing out everything they possibly can by the looks of it. Luckily for me, a couple of evolves and an Israfil. It's going to be a rough time for them. Especially since we will be up to 16 health again once we drop this Israfil. And we also have another Conflag, so double Israfil and Conflag. They're definitely not building any boards against me, which is great. And even if they had managed to build up another PDK, it would have been instantly removed, so a really perfect way to go against this dragon deck. Honestly, at this point, there's not much they could do to counter this. Sun and Moon is a fairly reasonable play. I mean, they're definitely looking for what they can do.
Is this as far
But
as I know?
give up and just decide it's not worth the hassle to try and continue the match. Going from that last dragon game to Shadow, this deck was an interesting one, honestly. It's definitely not a standard Shadow deck, and it's definitely something that had some twists to it as I was playing against it, which made it fairly interesting to fight. With how the meta is currently, there is some random card decks just kind of floating around, so it's not surprising to see something completely off the wall show up. So neither of us have a good turn 1. My turn 2 is fairly decent, being able to ramp up, especially when I'm already going first, putting me ahead even further in the race to the highest play points. But they do end up going for their 2-drop, which is fairly decent, even though we can go for 2 of ours. It's just at least going to make it a little harder on them.
Show me your deck.
Gloomy Necromancer gets its own drop as well, this time throwing the Hector away. Really interesting play there. It's not what I expected from them at all. Can go for a couple of trades. It is going to allow us to get these Dragon's Nests out now, ready for turn 7. Or, sorry, ready for 7 play points, I should say. We're going to be well and truly prepared. Corpse Lord of Woe though, this is where things get really interesting. This card on its own isn't that great, but overall it can be quite strong if it continually gets played out. I mean, it's only got 4 Necromancy right now, so it's not getting an evolve itself, which means they do have to evolve it on their own.
A dance to make the world blue.
But I do feel like at least trying to get rid of it as quickly as possible was the right kind of way to go. I can always Conflag next turn, which will decimate this board pretty easily. But it was definitely an interesting play. So they go for it, and they do end up putting another evolve on it, obviously making it hard for me to do anything against. Conflag still looking to be the best play to wipe this board out. Although maybe we have other options, although Conflag still looks too good to be true. Does leave the Corpse Lord of Woe on the board again, and this time it will probably evolve, I think? Yes, it does. It evolves on its own, which is a little bit of a pain, because it does mean it gets its attack out. But it does also mean they're absorbing a lot of shadows by that Corpse Lord. Definitely not a card I expected to see in rotations in Masters. But we did end up drawing Frenzy Drake, which is pretty much perfect. It's a good counter and sets up a 7/7. It's basically the new Bahamut of Dragon, which was to be expected with Bahamut rotating. So the Corpse Lord continues to sway the board. But they do decide to trade, which actually works in my favour. I can now Israfil this entire board, remove it, and heal all at the same time, which is going to be great. And it should leave us with a 10/6. Which is actually perfect.
I will play a song of sorrow.
We have way more than enough now to start trying to swing this game in our favour. Of course, a Hector will be difficult to deal with. The Soul Squisher is not exactly fun.
Sorrow is sounding.
And of course, Skeleton Print's great. Making life a little difficult for me. So since we are now out of evolves, I do decide to push the Canyon of Dragons, trying to slam it in where I can. The sooner I can get it on the board, the better.
Hey, why so angry?
Because it is going to give us the most value.
Fate finds the brave.
Bad does get its drop though, which is going to be a nightmare for my dragons. So we have a few more cards now. We've got a couple more canyons. I also want to be able to use this Dragon Blade to remove a card here. Very important that we can remove something. And a Sybil will at least present something to counter this. It will give us a heal, which is a bonus. And we also get our 5/5 dragon. So our board is fairly steady with a good health total. Which is exactly where you want to be.
We shall shield thee.
But they do get the Demon Lord. Of course, it is going to cost them almost everything to remove this board.
The dance ends.
Which makes it a little difficult for them.
That's it for now.
Smash him to pieces!
Enough of your wretched faces.
But we do get a Frenzied Drake to counter this fairly well. I mean, it instantly is going to be able to deal things fairly easily.
Follow my wings, wander no longer.
Show me your deck. Welcome to the place.
And they go very wide with this board.
Food should act like food.
The void, it beckons me.
Food should act like
Demon Eater though does end up removing its own, getting themselves some more draw while trying to set up obviously for a big Hector play. I can see that that's where they're trying to head with this. Of course, I don't have many options in plays left, so my best option is probably to try and stick another Canyon to the board while I can, and push out as much as possible.
I am Belinus the Shining.
This head can't be taken.
So they do go really wide with this. Obviously they want to deal with everything they can here, and they have a fairly good way to do it. I mean, this Hector is pretty much perfect, and that ping was ideal. Now I'm really banking on my draw. The Conflag is pretty much perfect for this situation. Being able to remove their board effectively was extremely important in this match so far, and I really wanted the draw, which I did get a Zeus, so that does start to put us ahead a little bit. We should be able to heal, even if it's just that little bit with this Dragon's Nest.
Welcome to the place between
So
light
Twilight Queen gets its drop, and Skeleton
The
Prince.
greatness that is all.
Both really solid. If they have another Hector, we could be in trouble, although Zeus should block out a lot of this damage. So the only real play I had was to go Zeus and go face. Really got to push this turn if I wanted to have any chance at winning. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have a third Hector just because they have already banished one.
Do this again.
Not banished, sorry, removed one, and they played two, so I'd say that was all three anyway, which is what I was hoping, and it ended up winning the game. So I hope you guys did enjoy this deck. This Ramp Dragon deck is pretty solid. I definitely would like to mess around with some of the late game numbers a little more and try and get a deck that I'm happy with. Otherwise, this does fairly well on ladder at the moment. It's got heavy removal, it can have a good early game, and it's good late game. So I think all around, this deck does quite nicely. If you already had a lot of the Ramp Dragon cards, there isn't a lot you would need for this in general. So it's not really that expensive if you are a long-term player. If you are a newer player, it's definitely not a deck I recommend you start with just because it is so expensive. And a lot of the decks now are, so it's getting tricky to really be a good free-to-play player, especially if you're just starting the game. Although I hope to look into that very soon for you guys, so we can come up with some good strategies for that. If you did enjoy the video, please check out the deck in the description below, hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.